What's up, summoners? Blair here. Today, for Top 5 Tuesday, we're going to be talking about the top 5 damage dealers in Epic 7 right now. These are units that you typically will fill the role as your DPS unit in your draft in RTA to carry the damage for your team. One common thing about a lot of these DPSs is that they're actually able to survive as well as pump out really good damage over time, eventually winning you the fight. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, the top 5 damage dealers. Now, if you do like the video and you want to see more, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. Link down in the description. Without further ado, let's get right into it with the top 5 damage dealers. Now, I have to say, we are going to find out about Samurai Seria in a couple of hours from when this video is getting posted. And she could be the most broken DPS unit we've ever seen and completely change the meta again. But most likely, these units will still remain extremely powerful, right? But again, with that in mind, let's get right into this one. And one thing I also do want to point out with these top 5, it is very hard to say one is better than the other. So for the first time in the top 5 Tuesdays, these are actually not going to be ranked as far as stronger than the other because they each counter each other, right? So it's one of those things that's like, hey, you could say that this unit is one of the best, but he also loses super hard to this other unit that's also in these top 5, so wouldn't that make them better? So it's a pretty interesting triangle that it has made RTA very interesting. But enough about me talking about this theoretical stuff. Let's actually get to the top 5, starting with the honorable mentions. So first, the honorable mentions are going to be Pavel, who is the craze right now. The only reason I didn't put him on here is because he's primarily a cleave unit. You don't really see him anywhere outside of cleave. But if you're cleaving, he is the premier unit, right? So I feel like I have to mention him because his damage is out the wazoo and it's just so much burst, but usually it's just burst and dies, right? But it's usually enough to win. To an extent, also Strasse, he could go up over time as more people get better with him, but right now he mostly is just going to be a a cleave slash aggro type unit. So he doesn't see that much play, although he has the potential to just instant one-shot a unit. And it's something that in the future, if we ever go back to a slow meta, you will definitely know Strasse is going to be one of the most powerful units in that tank meta, because just one-shotting a unit out the gate is very, very hard to deal with for a lot of teams. So he actually has the potential to be a incredibly powerful DPS, but right now for general use, he is not seeing that general use play. Some other units to mention is going to be someone like Judge Kise. The reason she's not in there is she's more of a burst style unit. People are really easily able to reveal her and take her out, so she's not able to do as much DPS as some other heroes since she's just burst and die. But again, in the right situation, she could be really good. And now for these other two, these may shock you and you may start disagreeing with me, but the two that I'm going to talk about are before these units would be no-brainers. But now I don't think they're top 5, right? They're not at the same level they were before. Spectre Tenebria is one of them, right? She's still incredibly powerful and she borderline could be on here, but you don't see her pick that often anymore. She's still extremely good at what she does. That is, if the opponent doesn't have an AoE, you're able to slowly melt them away with S3 and S1s and soul burns and just completely destroy them. If you have a general purges or if you give her attack buff, she can be extremely threatening, especially with someone like Amelia. The reason why people aren't playing her as much is there's a lot of cleave and aggro type drafts right now, and a lot of units that are also meta that can easily reach her and get rid of her. So while she's still extremely powerful and she could honestly be in that top 5 list, she's just not quite there. Again, as the meta changes, she could go up. As we get more support heroes, she inherently gets buffed whenever a new support hero gets released, like Amelia, because she's always the unit that everyone's going to be looking at. But again, still extremely powerful, just not quite the same edge that she had last season. And of course, Arbiter Vildred, still RB, still extremely powerful, will still sweep your team if you're not protecting against him. But right now, he's kind of in a weird spot that unless you're cleaving, most people are easily able to tank you out and get rid of you, especially because the other DPSs are able to tank him out or take him out before he's able to do damage, right? Right now, RTA is in a weird place where it's either extremely aggressive drafts and cleaves that can get rid of Arbiter Vildred, or extremely defensive drafts with DPSs that are well protected behind double soul weavers or something like a Crimson Armin, where Arbiter Vildred is not able to properly do the damage before dying, and on his degen build, he's not fast enough to deal the damage that he needs to do. So weirdly enough, he's fallen off a little bit, but still extremely powerful in the right situation, can force, and in cleave he's still amazing, right? In cleaving and aggro teams he's also still really, really good. But again, a lot of other people learning how to deal with Arbiter Vildred, not making him as scary. I rarely see Arbiter Vildred at this point unless it's against a cleaver. But now to the top 5. These are the units that you will definitely see and you should consider building because they are that powerful. At number 5, we have Charlotte. I feel like I cannot talk about her enough. The amount of units that Charlotte counters right now is ridiculous. She's really good into Landy. She's really good into Violet. She is really good into Spectre Tenebria. She's really good into a lot of squishy teams that don't have sustain because you're just able to just DPS them to death. Now, she does have counters, especially if they have a lot of water units, but with how many good earth heroes that there are in the meta right now, a late game Charlotte pick as your core, as your primary DPS is often enough to either force a ban or just outright win you the game. Her lifesteal build is just easily able to just keep her alive, doing damage, surviving. She inherently gets defense buff and attack buff. Her EE giving her that extra HP stab boost, as well as giving her the potential to get CR pushing so that she's able to take more turns, is also just invaluable. So tanky, does dummy damage, hard to deal with, and can self-sustain. It's the hallmarks of a great DPS hero. And against those other characters we mentioned, she's extremely good. Again, in the right situation, she just stomps, right? She's either force ban or just you auto win the game, right? So Charlotte, really good DPS, and a lot of people not quite guarding against her, right? A lot of people don't guard against the potential Charlotte that is just gonna eat their team alive, right? So Charlotte, very good unit that you should definitely start investing in. She's one of the units that is on my priority list for units to build right now. Then at number 4, we have the only AoE damage dealer right now, but that is going to be Violet. The reason why this unit is able to do so much damage over time is because of his ability to counter every single time he dodges, right? If he dodges, he's counterattacking with the S1, and he's able to apple to give himself increased stats, and he gets CR to keep pretty steady DPS up. The other thing is that if you've ever faced a Violet, you know how crushing this S3 can be. This S3 does dummy amounts of damage. It has a higher damage base than Violet. Yes, that is right. If you have attack buff, you're doing more damage than a Violet, right? Same exact thing as Violet, right? Except Violet gets attack buff innately. If you do this S3 with this buff and the attack buff, you're easily doing more damage than a Violet at max stacks. And it's ridiculous how much single target damage this unit can deal. And just alone with how hard he is to deal with, gives him a slot as the number 5 spot. He's the reason why you don't see that many water teams anymore. He's essentially just blocking them out. And why you don't see that many F10 is because of Violet's ability to dodge water 100% of the time, counterattack with an S1, get CR push, get damage in, and then come in and just immediately kill a unit. He's incredible against units like Rem, and he does really good into teams that just don't have the damage to get rid of him. Violet being a really annoying unit, really good at dodging, and really good for even anti-cleaving. Then at number 3, we have a unit that is very new to the game, but has already made a massive impact, and that is going to be none other than Rem. She's arguably going to be the best water DPS that you can put right now, taking the slot of CSAT to an extent, as well as Chu, just because of how disgusting her counter can be. The one weakness she does have is going to be the fact that she does rely a lot on her getting her counters, right? If she doesn't get counters, she's not doing that much damage. But if she gets a single counter, you do so much damage AoE. You're doing an AoE attack that reduces buff duration and also applies unhealable, and does dummy damage on a unit that's inherently extremely tanky, that's going to be on something like Secret Scythe. And then when a unit dies and you go into demon mode, now your S1 hits twice and you can soul burn it to get 100% guaranteed decreased defense and hit twice quite hard, and she self-attack buffs. She has essentially made Carrot less of a busted unit and a must pick or ban type unit because Rem exists, because of that S2. Now, the one thing she does have is burstier type units. Assassins are able to actually one-shot her before she can really pop off, but if you don't deal with her, she's going to just eat your team alive with the S3 as well as the S2. So Rem, really solid in the current meta, and a really good DPS whenever they pick very heavy into fire, such as Charlotte or even something like a Carrot, right? So one of the reasons she sees that much play is because of those other 2 DPSs being so popular. But now at number 2, and honestly to me, this unit is probably going to be the one that has the highest ceiling in my opinion, and could potentially be the strongest, and that is going to be none other than Landy. So if I can get to the Rangers, Landy has really proven to be a menace. She's a limited unit, same thing with Rem, and it's one of the reasons that a lot of people may not have her, but this unit is just absolutely ridiculous. Most people have already given up their full DPS Landys and have opted for either speed Bruiser or for just counter Bruiser full tank Landys, because of how much damage this S3 does. And the thing that she has over all the other DPSs is the amount of utility that she provides. She's able to give an AoE speed buff that often enough becomes too much for the opponent to deal with. She has access to Guiding Light to be able to last longer turns. She has self-scaling attack as well, attack that allows her to do a lot of damage while maintaining really good tank stats. And she has a ton of cycling with this S1, 30% every time you hit a buffed unit. So you have a unit that's AoE penetrating defense, giving the whole team speed buff, ramping up in the game, and just able to pump out ridiculous amounts of AoE damage, as well as ignoring the counter-attack mechanic, making her a pretty good option against things like Violet, and really good against things like Spectre Tenebria, and units like Amelia and Well that are able to protect her, or even General Purges that are able to give her attack buff, have made Landy just an absolute menace. And attack buff Landy, within 2 S3s, most teams are dying, right? No matter how tanky you are, no matter how squishy you are, she honestly, to me, is probably the best DPS unit just because of the utility that she provides. But again, Charlotte and Carrot kind of keep her in her check, right? So that's one of the reasons why, again, these top 5 are not ranked, because of how tightly matched these DPSs are in matchups against each other, right? And then last, but definitely not least, this unit has not left, and people still struggle against her, and you should still definitely build her. We have none other than Carrot. The reason she's number 1 is because she is a completely free-to-play unit. There is no reason why you shouldn't have a Carrot built. She is amazing. She does a ton of damage. She's good in cleave. She's good in control. She's good in Bruiser. She's good in so many situations, and even if they just build a whole draft to counter her because her damage is based on her burns on her S3, that gives you so much room in your draft to be able to deal with whatever they picked, right? So that's the big reason why Carrot is so good, as well as having the mage and being able to bring souls to the team that she doesn't particularly have to use. It just makes her extremely powerful. She counters things like Stennet, and it's the reason why Stennet is not as strong anymore, is because she loses to almost all the top DPSs, and Carrot is able to easily land burns on her. She does really good into Landy because she's able to burn Landy and put so much pressure on the Landy that eventually she's able to kill her. She does good into Violet because even if you hit him and he dodges, he counters you, he burns himself, you pop the burn, you're doing damage to him. So again, really good matchup there. The only DPS that she loses to and she goes even with Charlotte, and she loses to Rem, right? Rem really does good against her because Rem is able to become immune to debuffs, making all of Researcher Carrot's damage go away, as well as being able to do really good single target damage onto Carrot, essentially getting rid of her without much trouble, right? But again, Carrot, still incredible. A lot of people are learning how to counter her, but she went from being like SSS, must pick ban unit, to A+/S tier, right? So again, incredibly powerful. No reason you shouldn't have yours built. There is no reason you shouldn't have your Carrot built, because everyone should have their Carrots built because of how much work this unit does. So that is going to be it for the DPSs. If you've been playing RTA or plan to play RTA, you are going to see these heroes at least one every single match. Whether you like it or not, they will be there because they are going to be the main DPSs that people use, and learning how to deal with them and counter them is a good way to actually be able to climb a lot higher in RTA. But yeah, those are the units that people are trying to protect, and it's a cornerstone for Bruiser and for the protect the castle team type compositions. But that is all I have for you guys today. Hopefully I enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Peace.